Steven Interviews You. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Steven Interviews You. This is episode number 18, and this is a series where I sit down and have a good chat with a very special guest. And here, his name would be, introduce yourself.
I am Rian Winter, Sports Chat 503.
Nice to have you on, Ryan. So let's just get started here with your YouTube channel, Sports Chat 503. And so to start off here, what inspired you to start making YouTube videos in general? What was like a moment, or was it like people inspiring you? What was the motivation behind that?
That's a good question. So I started in 2010, and it had been, YouTube had been out for a little bit. It gained some popularity right out of the gate, and I just saw a bright future there. I wasn't trying to make anything necessarily out of my thing. I'm not trying to make it into a career or anything, but I've always appreciated sports radio. I've always been been a big fan of sports medium in general, and always looked up to radio guys, and always had the gift of gab, and I always was ready to chat with anybody about anything. And had a really good friend of mine who basically was my best friend growing up, who he and I would basically chat it up on Sunday night. He'd call me, I'd call him. We'd find ourselves in a situation. He was a chef, so we'd start doing dinners and stuff on Sunday nights, the conversations that we were having were awesome. And I said, hey, we should just do this exact conversation we're talking right here. Just record it, put it on YouTube, and have it be Sunday conversation is what we originally thought, something like this. And just have it a weekly thing, and have it two guys get together. And that was before the term podcast had come out. That was before anybody had, people were calling it like a vlog or something. It was a wild deal. And so we just did it, and we talk about all sports because we're sports fans, right? For everything. And over time, I'm a Duck. I'm a historical Duck. My family's all connected through there, so I've been going to games my whole life. A multiple generation Duck. My son's there now, and so I was going to Duck games. The Ducks weren't necessarily always that great. They were always pretty good. But right when we started this YouTube channel, the Ducks started to get really good. And then we started to go on the road and try to film stuff. We'd go to the bowl game and do, a variety of different things that people were like, man, this is really cool, And so the channel kind of just leaned toward the Ducks based on the fact that, a lot of people didn't really give that much of a damn. I mean, I could still talk NBA or NFL or anything else. I just don't know if that many people are as interested in it. And then I slowly got, just more and more connected to, based on my channel, started to go through COVID. COVID changed the game for everybody. And during COVID, we weren't able to go to games, and we weren't able to have any sort of connection. So I started doing like a Zoom call. And on the Zoom call, I started having athletes come in, reporters come, because I had relationships with a bunch of these different people. And they said, well, we should do this online. And one of the guys, a former player for the Ducks named Brady Breeze, who had been a Sports Chat fan since he was in like middle school, he said, you should do interviews. And I had never even thought of it. Started doing interviews, really opened up the channel. Now I do kind of a straightforward situation where in the off season, I bring in guys, do interviews with them, talk about the games coming up. I do interviews with a variety of different people. And then, now you see it all over the place. Now you see everybody's got YouTube channels and everybody's covering a different team. And so I really feel great about it. I think everybody should have a YouTube channel. I think it's a great medium. I think YouTube's fantastic. And I feel like now I'm like kind of an elder statesman in the field because I've been at it for so long. But the Ducks have also, during that time since I started, been very relevant. Even in the years where they weren't good or lost their coach or something else, people still flock to my channel to chat it up and to talk about it. So we built a really strong community. It's a great place. It's fun, very organic. It's very natural. And we have a lot of fun. So Sports Chat 503, if you're interested, come on, chat it up with us.
Yeah. So about the Ducks, the Oregon Ducks, obviously you're a huge Oregon Ducks fan for all sports. So I would like to know this question. What started your journey as an Oregon Ducks fan in particular? What really got it going to become a fan of University of Oregon sports?
Well, like I said, I didn't really have a choice in it. I was born on campus. My grandparents went to Oregon. My parents went to Oregon. My son's there now. So like my whole lineage was based on that. We're from Portland, but we have always been Eugene people. I was born, like I said, there's a hospital on campus and literally next door to campus when my mom was at school is when I was born. So I've been connected to the U of O. I went to my first game before I was even a year old. My aunt had season tickets all the way since she was a graduate in 73. And so I've just grown up with it. I mean, I used to go to summer camps there in basketball. I played all sports growing up, and I'm an absolute sport addict, addicted to sports growing up, and was good enough to go to play in different things, whatever, and would go down there every year to play in basketball camps every year. So it's a really fun kind of community that's been built. It's a fun community if you just like saw them and said, I'm a fan of that team now, just pick it out of a hat. But that's not how it is for me. I'm definitely born into the situation.
Yeah. So staying on the Oregon Ducks, especially for college football, because that is something I closely follow, college football.
Sure.
What are some, in particular about the Oregon Ducks, what are some of your favorite moments in Oregon Ducks football history? Any like real good games that you could, probably many because of the Oregon Ducks we're talking about, but
Yeah.
what are some of your favorites?
Yeah. And I've been to so many games. I mean, I've been to hundreds of games. So, obviously the game, the play that started it all was the Kenny Wheaton interception, 1994. We call it the pick. It's literally like a play that changed Oregon football, the trajectory of it against Washington. I was there. I was in section 17 for that one. Last year beating Ohio State, right? And the clock running out on Ohio State, the crowd rushing the field, being a part of that. That was a special moment. I mean, I'll just give you a little story on that one. I have had a relationship, last couple, I don't know, maybe even probably more than that now with Josh Pate, back and forth. He came out to Oregon, had a great conversation with him. We chatted it up, follow each other, and kind of back and forth a little bit. He's very good about texting and direct messages or whatever. And so he, and leading up to that Ohio State game, I was like, man, and I've always kind of tried to say, hey, I'd love to have you on. This was back then when he wasn't as big. Now he's like the big timer dude. He's on everything. He doesn't have time for me. But he was always like, yeah, sure, I'd love to come on your channel. And so I was kind of trying to network with him through this whole time and knew that he would come out to that Ohio State game. And I said, hey, man, I'd love to see you out here. Let's connect. Oh, yeah, definitely. Let's do it. The game breaks up. The play happens. We jump over the fence. We're yelling and screaming. And I get on the field, and literally within 5 to 10 seconds of getting on the field, I'm right there, right next to Josh Pate. I'm like, how do you like that kind of a thing? And it was just that kind of a thing where you build a relationship with those kind of guys, and then you have those moments. And of course, some of the players on that team who I had, met when they were, freshmen or seniors in high school. I'm a high school teacher, so I try to reach out to guys if they're in their recruiting time. I'll talk to them a little bit. But some of these guys I've built relationships with for some time now, and to be able to have that kind of moment. And then I'm really good friends with a lot of the guys' parents. So I'm the same age as a lot of these kids' parents. I got a kid in college. They got kids in college. So I'm really close with a lot of the parents. And so getting on the field and celebrating with them. And I mean, it's great. So yeah, no, I think those are the two moments that really come to mind. Bowl games, there's been some really fun ones. We had the win in Rose Bowl, which was a blast because, that was such a hard thing for us. We hadn't won a Rose Bowl in 95 years. Those are all big moments. But even just a little moment of like, we hit a field goal a couple 3 years ago against Washington State, had to come back to beat Washington State at the very end. Huge game. I mean, those are just little, and that game doesn't hit on the same level of, beating Washington overtime. That was a great one. I mean, there's so many of them, but it's a great community. University of Oregon is really fun to be a part of, and the fan base, we make it a lot of fun.
Yeah. So speaking of the fan base in Eugene, Oregon, what is it like, the culture in Eugene, Oregon, college town, of course, the tailgating, just all the build up towards Oregon Ducks games? Could you describe to me what that is like?
Yeah, well, it's to be honest, it's not as big as a lot of the Big Ten stuff. now we're in the Big Ten, so we've had an opportunity to go out on the road. And this year, I mean, I saw Penn State this year. It was unbelievable. They gave us a map that was on a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, of the whole tailgate, of all the areas they have the tailgate. And in the middle, about this big, was the stadium. And I'm thinking on the scale of something like, this is how much tailgating there is here. And the tailgate that we were in, beautifully mowed grass, totally level, fenced in area, wide open spaces. Really pretty impressive. Oregon's tailgate scene is actually kind of interesting. Historically, the stadium was built in 1967, and it was built in a dump, literally in the city dump. So it was wide open space. You had plenty of room out there. It was a gravel parking lot, and there's plenty of room. And when I was a kid, you'd go up, park wherever you wanted to park. You didn't even need a ticket for the game. You could just go to will call right at the front, go to the ticket office, get yourself a ticket, go in, sit wherever you want. And things have changed dramatically, right? And so now what we have around Autzen Stadium now is you've got a baseball field, you got a soccer field, you've got an indoor practice facility, you've got the new indoor practice facility just being built right now that is an absolute behemoth. So the surrounding areas around the field have really tightened up. So you have a big section right across the street that's more of the natural area, right? And that's where you have a tremendous amount of tailgating. And then you do have what's left of the parking lot. There's tailgating over there, obviously, as well. But Oregon historically is known for being a party state, especially out west. Out here, Portland, Eugene is the liberal side of Oregon. When people think of Oregon being a liberal state, it's just basically those two cities. You get a foot out of those two cities and you're in conservative. The rest of the country, kind of a thing, blue state, red state, if you want to get down politic line. And, there's just, it's a fun atmosphere on the level of Eugene has always been just kind of a wild city. I mean, it's known for obviously being a college town. It's about a fourth the size of Portland. So it's small, but people flock it from all over the state. And that's what's really cool about the University of Oregon. I got to talk about this, political divide or whatever. Everybody shares their love for the Ducks, right? And everybody comes to Eugene for that purpose, but not necessarily everybody likes necessarily Eugene or Portland on the same levels. We have there's negative feedback sometimes on those cities, but it's a great vibe, good community. We're really early in the craft brewing. So we were way ahead of the curve. We've got all sorts of beers. And then of course we grow great wine out here. So the tailgates have a lot of options. You're not going to get a sort of a wild sort of array of different foods like you do down south or somewhere else. And you're not getting people dressed up like you're going to see at Ole Miss or something, but you definitely have a very strong tailgate scene, and people love to party, man. They love to get it going. And then also, historically, Oregon, most of my lifetime had outlawed the sale of beer in the stadium. No, there was no alcohol beer in the stadium, only in the club level. And so a lot of the tailgating was done out at the car. People would leave at halftime and go back out to the car. And now that they have beer and wine sales in the stadium, I think actually the new tailgate spot is actually in the stadium. People are now in the stadium much earlier and stay much later. And, I think, but historically they like to party a little bit out here west on the West Coast.
Yeah. So funny you mentioned about beer and wine. I'm more of a wine guy myself. So
hey, nice. Yeah, we grow the Pinot Noir out here. That's our best wine.
yeah. Sweet red for me. So yeah. Anyway, talking about the history of Oregon Ducks football, you guys were previously in the Pac-12. Yeah, I know I'm going to a historical kind of question here, but how was it to be in the Pac-12 back in the day? And how would you compare that to how you guys are doing now in the Big Ten?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to be in the Pac-10. I grew up with the Pac-10. My parents and my grandparents, obviously, Pac-8. I feel terrible the fact that our conference got broken up. I don't like it at all. Obviously, the Ducks had to do what they needed to do, and they went to the Big Ten because that was the only really option for them. They needed to have that as a life boat. Otherwise, you'd be in the same situation that the Beavs are in. The Beavs and the Cougs, they're both drowning in obscurity based on the fact that they didn't make it to a big conference. So I loved our West Coast Conference. We had a lot of fun, man. We had great connections. The idea that we used to have a really tight conference, we used to have a round robin in football. We could play everybody, and we didn't need an extra game. We didn't need the championship game. Those days were really awesome, and then obviously when the Pac-12 happened, and then we kind of needed that championship game. Not everybody played everybody. That was fun as well. Utah and Colorado, it was good to have those guys, but really all we needed was the original 10. And to be honest, we didn't even really need Arizona and Arizona State. The original Pac-8 I thought was really tight. But again, USC leaves, UCLA follows them, and we know how the rest of it goes. But actually, I kind of think that, the Pac-12 was kind of ahead of the curve. They actually wanted to get Texas and Oklahoma to come over, and they couldn't put the deal together. And it's too bad, because had they done that, they'd be still alive, and probably the Big 12 would be under. But it was a great run. Historically, we used to love to do stuff like go on the road to the Arizona game late in the year, right? We used to always go play Arizona or Arizona State the week before we'd play the Beavs, and that's the other thing about playing in a tight conference that you have historical connections with, is almost you can build your schedule years in advance. Everybody knows when everybody's going to play each other. It's the second week of this month, the third week of this month, and you kind of have these traditional matchups, traditional times. And a lot of that's interrupted now with cable. We don't know what time we're going to play. We don't know when we're going to play. I mean, the cable companies decide everything now. And it's a tough situation. So, yeah, I'm very bitter about the Pac-12, the demise of the Pac-12, but it was their own doing. A lot of the smaller schools had sided with the brass of the Pac-12, and they went down with the ship.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to ask that, because it's been last few years, it's been a big topic, conference realignment. So
Yes.
to get that perspective, that's really that means a lot. So you mentioned the Beavs, Oregon State, the Beavers.
That's
As
right.
far as rivalries go, not just for the Beavers, but just for anybody else you guys would play back in the day. Uh, who do you consider to be fierce rivals of the Oregon Ducks?
Well, of course, the Beavs, historically, I think there was a lot of Duck fans that just they discredit the Beavs so much that they don't even really want them to be a rival. So they looked up to Washington as the rival, right? Washington was really good through the 70s, 80s, early 90s, and from basically the mid 90s, early 2000s, all the way through till just recently, within the last 5 years, Oregon has really controlled that rivalry. And, within the last 5 years, that rivalry has been awesome, because Oregon's been good. Washington's been good. A couple of years ago, we had Bo Nix against Michael Penix up there in Seattle. That game was phenomenal. Because I live in Portland, I never missed that Husky game in Seattle. And but I used to love the Beav game. The Beavs are our rival. They're our neighbors. We see them all over the place. They hate us. They absolutely hate us. I mean, I have old women at the bank telling me I'm wearing the wrong hat. They're confrontational. They just don't like us. And then when the whole conference broke up and they were left like the band on the Titanic with the Pac-12, buddy, it got worse. Now it's a loathing situation. They literally despise us. And so I think that's part of the goal when it comes to a rivalry, is you want to have a little bit of heat. And we had that with the Beavs. And I'm a high school teacher. Last night we had our high school rivalry game, and it is heated. I mean, there is no love lost between those teams at all. And you can throw out the record books just because there's so much passion and whatnot out on the field. But things get weird in that rivalry game. And now it's like Oregon and Oregon State have to be, or Oregon State and Washington State have to be quote unquote rivals, even though they're actually, co-conspirators. They're partners, and so it's a weird situation. So yes, historically, I used to love the Beav game. I used to love going to that. I went to as many as I could my whole life. I've only missed like 5 of them. I used to like to go to the basketball games of the Beavs. Baseball, of course, that's their best sport. Last year, we swept them in baseball. I mean, how good did that taste? That it's completely different than beating Washington, right? Washington is kind of a canned rivalry. It's kind of It's kind of an artificial rivalry brought to you by, who insert whoever is the sponsor deal of that game, right? Versus the Oregon State game, that Oregon State rival, we don't need a sponsor for that. That's sponsored by pure good old fashioned hate. And it's fueled really on their side. I think the Ducks could really care less half the time, which makes them even more furious. It just adds fuel to the fire. So I like the Beav rivalry more than the Washington rivalry, but I do respect the Washington rivalry. And when you look to the rest of the country and you look and you compare things like Oregon and Washington, could that be something that we see like a Florida, Georgia, or a Ohio State, Michigan, right, where it's a cross-state rivalry instead of an in-state rivalry? We're so used to the in-state stuff here because everybody in our old conference had the in-state rival, right? So, and that was already built in for 100 years. So it's kind of hard to change that tradition overnight. But we're getting used to it, and so now the Huskies are our rival, and which is fine because we haven't liked the Huskies for years. But it is kind of a weird situation when everybody kind of forces you to no longer have the rivalry with the Beavs, and we're not even going to play them in football next year. So, I mean, talk about getting crazy. That's a wild one for me.
Yeah. So now that you guys are in the Big Ten, and you've been in the Big Ten for years now, looking at the rest of the conference, who would you consider, if not already, who would you consider to be your rivals?
Well, we came into it with the Washington thing. So again, I don't think, because we're such outliers to the Big Ten, we're obviously the new kids on the block when it comes to the Big Ten. It's a very established conference, and Oregon and Washington basically are coming in together. USC and UCLA are coming in together. Oregon USC's always had a really good thing going on. Oregon's always played well against them. USC's always been the crown jewel of our conference, so everybody wants to beat them. But it is one of those things where historically, I think the rivalry has to just be there. In relations to other Big Ten schools, I think the school that we had the closest connection with is the school actually we just got done playing. It was Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a school that I think we have, a little bit more in common with than not. And it's not like it's a negative rivalry, but, we've met each other in a couple Rose Bowls. We've met each other in the NCAA tournament, some Sweet 16s, that sort of stuff. I think maybe an Elite Eight. But, these are just kind of situations where, when you get into a new conference, you don't have any control over it anymore. And, far be it from us to try to claim some sort of rivalry with some sort of team. And, everybody wants to beat Ohio State. We're just the next on the list. I think everybody wants to beat Ohio State. But for us, we're not going to come in and try to claim Ohio State as our rival or Michigan as our rival when obviously those guys are the rivals. That's probably the best rivalry in all of college football. And probably one of the best rivalries in all of sports. So I think Oregon and Washington is fine. It's a good rivalry. It's state to state. It's the Pacific Northwest. And when you compare us to the rest of the conference, we are right next to each other. I mean, we are really close. And our history does go back. They screwed us over in a Rose Bowl back in the day in the 40s. We're still pissed about that. There's a bunch of stuff that bad blood between us. Portland historically has always had a kind of a negative vibe with Seattle. It's kind of a little brother, big brother situation. We're the smaller city to Seattle. Portland historically, we had the Blazers. They had the Supersonics. We had a great rivalry there. Of course, the Supersonics are now gone. A lot of Mariner fans are from Portland. I'm a Mariner fan as well. The Mariner fans just got us just close enough to the fire, ripped our heart out again this year. So again, it's just it's one of those things. I think rivalries are kind of a weird deal. I do think that this Oregon-Washington rivalry is a little bit more canned than the native natural rivalry that was Oregon State, and it's too bad that those aren't together. Now there are some places where they have maintained those rivalries outside of the conference, and I think Oregon and Oregon State are going to try to do that, but historically those don't work that well, and they turn into maybe Georgia Tech or something like that.
So moving on to another topic, and this would be about the postseason, the college football playoff. It has started out as just 4-team playoff. Now it's a 12-team playoff, and now you're hearing stuff about possibly expanding to 16 or 24 or even more teams. What are your thoughts on on the college football playoff, how it's structured, the formats, and where do you see that going?
Well, I got a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, I've already tried to fill out these answers as much as possible. Holy moly, I could do an hour on this. Well, first and foremost, I think that the farther you get away from the BCS, you probably had the better system with the BCS, at least in my mind. I don't know of if at the end of the year, this is the main question here. At the end of the year, how many teams are really good enough to compete for the national championship? When you get done with the whole year, now obviously there are teams that you want to have an opportunity to play in a national championship, and maybe they would get there. But realistically, there's usually only two teams. Maybe you, in a wild year, you might have three. Maybe you might have 4 or 5 you can make an argument for. But if you're really being honest with yourself, most of the time you have a one team, a second team maybe that's on that tier that you could say could be challenging for the national championship. I always thought you should play it out the way that we always used to play it out. Everybody play their bowl game and then just have one more game and just choose these top 2 teams after that to play one more game. You know, like if you look to 1990 and the Washington Huskies and, the Miami Hurricanes, they split the national championship. Well, we always give the Huskies crap for that because it's a split national championship. And you would assume at that point that the one team was better than the other, correct? And so even if they were to play each other. So 4-team playoff is fun. It gets more people excited about it. 8-team playoff is fun. I don't care what team play. I don't care what number it is. I do think that it's going to just diminish the regular season. And I always thought that the regular season was so important for college football. And I think that they're now just taking it for granted. I think that they're now just taking for granted this idea that college football fans are just going to show up every single week and every single game is going to be important, even if they really aren't. And, I think you're still in a system right now where you got to get to the end with only one loss. Maybe you have 2 losses if you're a really high profile team. But I mean, you look at Miami's at 2 loss right now, and people are already trying to throw them out the door. So, the 12-team playoff, I don't like to expand it. I think it's already too big. I thought maybe 8 teams would have been right, and that number would have been better. But I think that the more you expand it, the more you might realize the better system we had might have been the old system. And the reason why I like the old system is because I liked the bowls. I liked the exhibition nature of the bowl at the end of the year. I liked the idea that everybody could leave with, not everybody, half the teams would leave with a win. And that could really kind of build you into the next year. It was really fun for the fan bases, I felt like, to kind of prioritize that as a vacation opportunity and go to some hot weather locations or something. And I think there was just a lot of really positive things about the bowls back in the day. And I think that a lot of people just instead were so hyper focused on a true champion, and their goal and their quest for the true champion squeezed a lot of the real positivity out of what we used to have at the end of the year. And what we used to have at the end of the year wasn't a desire or need to try to find one team that was clearly the best team, because I would actually go back and say Ohio State was the best team last year of the playoffs. Were they the best team of the regular season? No. And the way that they ended the year with that loss at Michigan, I don't know if even Ohio State fans would have said that they were deserving of the national championship after they lost that Michigan game. They went into the playoffs. They got hot. They were the best team at the end of the year. Great. That's awesome. And cheers to them. And of course, I was at that Rose Bowl where they kicked the hell out of us. That one sucked. But the ideology is that this idea for the quest for the one true champion, I think, really has probably hurt the sport. And at the end of the day, again, who's got more control? The advertisers, the cable companies. I mean, look what happened this weekend. You want to talk about a debacle, with this ESPN, YouTube TV thing and everything else. I'm a YouTube TV guy. We've got this all locked in. Can't watch the Miami game. I mean, what are we doing here? And, we were spending so much money. We're invested all this stuff. And now you're trying to nickel and dime us even more. you're trying to squeeze more out of the juice. At some point in time, you're going to kill the freaking vine. And you've put all this money and effort into NIL and creating like basically an NFL junior out of this thing, which is fine, but it's definitely not going to benefit teams like Ohio Bobcats. And I think that there was a time when, and realistically, I don't think we should have an expansion of the basketball thing either. I'm a huge college basketball fan. I love March Madness. Who the hell doesn't? I don't think you need 70, 80, 90 teams. Are you kidding me? So a lot of this expansion stuff is just purely for somebody else's wallets. It's not for us. We're the ones paying for it. It seems like we're the ones who are benefiting from it because we're the college football fans. No. We're the ones paying for more of it. They're the ones making the money off of it. So they've created a great system. I mean, I'm on board. Open my wallet, take my money, do what you're going to do, because obviously I love college football. But it is a shame that it's kind of gone this way. I mean, I do think that at one point in time, they probably had it really dialed in and they had figured it out. What they had figured out was you could keep regional connections with bowl games. You could keep bowl games being exciting. You could have your top tier game, your second group, your third group, your fourth group, even your fifth group. Gamblers would love to bet on these things. People would love to go to these games. Even the fourth tier bowl, going to Las Vegas Bowl for the Pac-12 was still fun. It was the worst bowl you could have gone to. Still a fun game. And then you would have that one game that's for the BCS, for all the marbles. And we participated in both of these formats. We've now participated in all of these formats as the Ducks. We were there in the BCS era against Cam Newton. I went to that game. We were a part of the first year of the 4-team playoff when we lost to Ohio State, when they were the 4th seed with their 3rd string quarterback. I don't need to bring up those memories. I was at that game as well. Talk about a kick in the gut. And then you have this last one where the Ducks go in as the number 1 seed of the entire tournament and get housed in the second round after a bye. So I don't know which system has been better for the Ducks. I don't know. It feels like all three have been that close or that close or that close to winning it. But I do think it's also right now, it's just a lot harder to win a national championship. It's going to take a lot to get there. And I don't know if it's going to be the number 1 team that's going to be able to do it every year. I think Ohio State proved the best way to go is to kind of avoid going to your conference championship game, lay in the weeds a little bit, get to host a game, get back on track, and then make your run. I think what Oregon did is actually a blueprint that could damage teams, right? You have to go to your conference championship. You have to slug that thing out. You have to, and then you get a bye, which is great, but it cools down the jets right before your best time where you need to get it going. And I've never been a big fan of the bye. And we see it in the NFL every year. Teams want to get that first round bye, and then they end up losing that second round. So I don't think the expansion has helped that much. I think it's great for some people, but I think it gets to be overkill. And even the casual fans like, what? Who's playing? What's going on? It turns out to be just more noise, and it runs up against the holidays. It runs up against a bunch of other stuff. I would prefer to have the entire schedule done by January 1st. Have your national championship be done by 5:00 on January 1st on the West Coast time. That would be my preferential way to go about it. And you can get on with the rest of your life and start focusing on basketball and start doing everything else. It's better for their academic year. They can get their guys going on a different level, bring the other guys in, whatever the case may be. But to stretch these things out to where, just like the Super Bowl, we're going to play the Super Bowl in March. Like, what are we doing here? Let's get this thing done. So, like I said, I could talk on that for a long time.
No, that was great. And I share a lot of what you just said. I share those feelings as well. So, I mean, even from my perspective, I follow a Group of 6 conference school, Ohio Bobcats. I mean, I know where we're at. I mean, I'm keep it realistic. So, to see the college football playoff be where it's at, it's like, would it really benefit the rest of us? I'm not sure. So, anyway, going back to your channel, Sports Chat 503.
Yeah.
what are some of the future plans that you may have for your channel going forward? Is there any like special events you may have planned for it?
Yeah, no, we keep it pretty special events. That's all. We should do some special events on Sports Chat 503 for sure, man. Um, I do a live stream every Tuesday night. That's kind of the only special event really I do. I try to do if I can, if I have internet access, I try to do a pregame show or a postgame show. I can go live in a parking lot. Try to do that for bowl games and stuff like that. But sometimes the internet's a little sketchy. Um, we haven't done like many like what meet and greets or so. I see a lot of my fans and whatever at games. They love to see me and hang out, whatever. I love to see them. Like I said, I think for my channel, I always say I'm a regular guy. I'm a school teacher. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a media guy. I'm not trying to build my channel into some sort of opportunity to get onto Barstool or go to ESPN or something. I think there's a lot of people who are trying to like do that. I'm not. This is just a hobby. I just like to chat about the Ducks. I like to communicate. I like to network with people. And more importantly, I like the Ducks. I'm here for my own perspective of to talk this stuff out. I'll be talking about it anyway. I may as well do it on YouTube and have them cut me a check. So the ideology is, I think the important thing is, the future of our channel, I think is bright. I think that, we're at a part right now in our society where, I think mainstream media has really lost a lot of credibility. And, now you talk about a situation where you have these, cable companies feuding over, millions of dollars when they're billions of dollars, in revenue or some sort of thing, that's going to piss a lot of people off. And, I don't think for me personally, and again, I'm just here talking from my own perspective here, right? You know, I don't subscribe to anything. Well, I mean, I give money to Ducks Rising, but I don't go on to message boards. I'm not a guy that like reads chats in chat rooms. I don't follow. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't follow people's podcasts. I don't personally consume that. And, I spend my time with my family. I do my own thing with my own stuff. When I'm here in the lab, when I'm doing stuff, I'm watching a game. Right now, I'm watching the World Series. I watch a lot of football. I watch a lot of tape, but I don't listen to a lot of other people's opinions. No offense, but like, I like the guys. I like everybody. I like the guys at Barstool. I like the guys at ESPN. I like the guys at Fox. I think that, they all do a great job. I watch those college football shows in the morning. On game day, a college game day or stuff. But I don't necessarily gain that much information from any of that content. Most of all of that content is not necessarily teaching me anything about the team that I'm already following. I know more. And again, I'm not trying to like be an ego here, guy, but like I have relationships with players, with coaches, with family members. My son is there. My son worked for the football team. I mean, my son was at practice every day this summer, right? So it's like I don't necessarily need to hear somebody else's thoughts on the thing who don't live here, don't go to games, don't do this. And I think that's kind of the other thing is, there's a lot of people out on the internet who are now doing their job or doing their thing from a totally different place. We have people who cover the Ducks who do not live in the state of Oregon, do not go to Duck games, maybe they get to go to one because their schedule works out for it or something, maybe. But there's a tremendous amount of people who that does not matter at all. You could live in Tokyo. If you have opinions on the Ducks because you watched it online, just like the rest of us watched it online, then you can talk about that. Versus what I try to do is I try to go to everything. And I try to bring my camera with me and bring my people with me, my fans a little bit, and give some insight, give some access. And I'm not trying to say that there's one that's better than the other. I do this all the time when it comes to people who played the sport versus people who didn't play the sport. I prefer to listen to commentators who played the sport. No offense to the ones who didn't play the sport. But I'm just telling you, from my perspective, if I know that guy played the sport and played the sport at a high level, there's already going to be built-in respect for me that I'm going to give that guy his due, and I'm gonna give them the respect that he deserves. And I think with the internet and with podcasts and everything else, everybody's got a voice, and there are sometimes these echo chambers that people get into where they don't really kind of branch out and look out for the real truth. They just kind of find their own little echo chamber that they're looking for somebody to agree with them. Basically, they find that person to agree with them and they just run with it. We see it in politics, we see it in sports, and I'm not here to be like hot take guy. Some of my least favorite people in the whole sports media world are the hot take guys, people who just come out there and scream and yell. ESPN's full of them, bunch of guys who just, that's their thing. I'm not that guy. From my perspective, what I'm trying to do from my channel is try to give people a little bit of insight into what the players are thinking, what the coaches are thinking, what the fans are thinking, and kind of compartmentalize it a little bit. And I can only tell you from my perspective what I think as a fan, right? But it's wild to me to see so many people consume so much information about these topics. And, a lot of people are way off on what they're talking about oftentimes. And I'll go back to the thing about the 12-team playoff. You have experts on this sport who picked teams that are nowhere near going to be at the end, and they were telling you they were locks in the summertime, and these people get paid money. I'm in my basement again. And did I think Penn State would be good this year? Yes. I thought they'd be better. Did I think Texas would be better? Yes. Whatever the case may be. So we're all at fault for it. But my point being is that this is just a sport, and I think that the bigger thing for me has always been trust the people who played the sport before. They're going to temper expectations. Some of these guys who sit behind me at Autzen, I can guarantee you they never put a helmet on. They never had to go through daily doubles. They never had to puke through their face mask. They never had to endure some of the stuff that football players had to endure to realize, hey, let's tone it down a little bit. Let's not get that crazy about this, because there are people who feels like when they go to these games that are the same mentality of people in Rome wanting to see these gladiators get murdered by a lion. I mean, there's some serious blood sport people out there. And so it's weird to me as a dad, as a father, as a teacher, as a coach. I want to see these players do their best, play the game the right way, pick each other up, score more points than the other team, celebrate it, get the hell out of there with no injuries. And I think there's a lot of other people who they want a variety of other things out of the game, right? And so I think a lot of times for me personally, from what I do, is I just try to educate as much as I can, or try to promote some sort of idea of sportsmanship, realistic expectations, right? The understanding that it's just a game, things happen, teams win, teams lose. Even if you play hard, other team plays better, you lose. It happens. And I think some people need that. And I think a lot of media people sometimes feed into the feeding frenzy that is this negativity in and amongst these fan bases. They fuel these flames, and they get into these altercations with the coach. I mean, look what the hell happened with Brian Kelly at the end. I mean, he's like arguing with reporters, and it's like, and on that level, now reporters have more power than the coach, because the reporters have a podcast, and the reporters can go ahead and talk junk about the coach on their podcast, and the reporters' fans are going to like that more than, it creates just more negativity. And in my mind, I'm here to try to spread positivity as much as I can.
Yeah. So one last question before we wrap this up. Basically about YouTube. What advice, Rian Winter, would you give to people that are just thinking about starting their own YouTube channels? What advice would you give them?
That's interesting. I've encouraged a lot of kids to start YouTube channels. I've actually encouraged a lot of my older guys to start YouTube channels. I had a guy who this year retired and went on a summer tour of 21 baseball stadiums, went and toured the entire country, went on a road trip. I said, record it, put it on YouTube. You're going to get a lot of views on that thing. You don't have to give up your own personality that much. You can just record what you're doing. I have a friend of mine who's about 2 years out of away from retirement. He's a woodworker. I said, put the camera on the bench and just record yourself gluing dowels And whatever the case, I said, even just you could have a video of you just cleaning the workspace, it would get views. And I think that, that might be a low hanging fruit kind of mentality of YouTube. But I think some of the most widely viewed videos on YouTube are literally people just mowing their yard or blowing leaves off a thing or vacuuming something or what. So, okay, to start a YouTube channel, I tend to think that you got to be, the first things first is I think you need to be authentic to whatever your thing is. If you're a fan, be a fan. If you're trying to not be a fan, don't be a fan. If you're talking about the sports media world, right? I think there's a lot of guys who get into it like, I'm a professional broadcaster. Strike two, which is great. And I think that's what I kind of was inspired by when I was young. Was those kind of guys who were just like plug and play. They could be for any team, anywhere. They just had a kind of a voice that could go with anything, right? Versus, these guys that are just an absolute homer, right? It has to be their team or else. And I do think that there's something to be said about guys who, if you're that guy, just be that guy, right? And yell and scream when your team wins and cry in your beer when your team loses. And you're going to get views either way. You're going to get views when your team is good. You're going to get views when your team's bad. I think being honest is the most important thing. I think a lot of people try to talk a lot of junk, right? They're either trying to convince somebody that they're somebody that they're not, or they're trying to create like a character of themselves. And I think that that's kind of a trap where people think of themselves as some sort of a celebrity because they're on YouTube. Anybody can have a YouTube channel. 5-year-olds have a YouTube channel. It's not that big of a deal. The ideology is that you need to do something with it, right? And, for me personally, I've always tried to just be a regular guy. I'm the same guy on my YouTube channel that I am at the grocery store, that I am at the duck game, that I am at my high school, that I am coaching golf or whatever else I coach, So you got to keep it real. And I think that a lot of people see through the BS, right? They see through the facade if you're not trying to be real. I also think that if you have access to something, use that and manage that a little bit, wherever that is, whatever that is. There's a YouTuber who's got I don't know if he's a TikTok guy or whatever else. He's a chef, and this guy who he's at a sorority house. I always see his videos, right? And he's doing different recipes, right? Well, he's built his whole thing into a little empire now. Now he's got cookbooks. Now he's got his own merch. Now he's got all this other sort of stuff, but his opportunity was the fact that he was cooking every single day at this place. And he could very easily just turn on his camera, hit record, at the end of the day, chop it up, make a video out of it, put it online, let it do its thing while you're doing everything else. And I think that's what I really gained from YouTube. My buddy who I started it with, he was very skeptical about it. He was like, no one's going to watch this. No one cares. And I said, you'll be surprised, man. I said, in the future, I think a lot of people are going to want to watch YouTube. I think YouTube is going to change television. Now we have YouTube TV. Now we have the whole squad. I mean, it really has changed. So I would say be authentic, be yourself, do your thing, use your opportunity that you have in front of you. If you have access to something, use it, man, whether it's on your job or for at a hobby or what we're doing here, talking about sports or whatever else. You have an interest in something, share your interest. Other people will dig it.
Yeah, and that's great advice. So, in closing, guys, for those of you listening to this, I will provide a link down in the description box below to Sports Chat 503, so you can check out Rian Winter and what he does on his channel. I've seen quite a bit of your stuff, Ryan. It's good stuff.
Nice.
You put out really good stuff, man.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I will provide a link to that channel, Sports Chat 503, in the description box below. Please check it out. I highly encourage all of you guys to check it out. And so, yeah, Rian Winter, thank you so much for being my special guest here on episode 18. This has been Stephen Interviews You, episode number 18. And we will be back with more interview related content soon enough. Thanks again, Ryan, for being on my show. And thank you guys for watching. Take care, guys.